The illusion can no longer hold. America is not in decline, it's unraveling. What passes for normal today is a shell of what once defined this nation.
They're crossing the southern border illegally and claiming asylum. Nearly all of the Mauritanians don't speak English, they can't legally work, and for housing, they're packing as many as 20 people into apartments meant for 2 to 4. And because so many of them have never used an oven before, the fire department is now regularly responding to kitchen fires like this one, where hundreds of people had to be evacuated. The massive influx of people is also taking a big toll on the city's utilities.
An education system without purpose, a culture fractured beyond recognition, an economy fueled by debt, and a financial system that confuses speculation with value. Incremental reform? That's a sedative for the naive. You don't slap a Band-Aid on a compound fracture, you set the bone or you let it shatter the body. Let's tear the curtain back on 4 foundational failures: education, culture, debt, and our delusional relationship with money. American education no longer serves to enlighten or equip. It exists to indoctrinate, indebt, and credentialize. What once aimed to create capable citizens now manufactures compliant subjects. Our public schools are overwhelmed by the children of illegal immigrants, while American students are sidelined under a silent but deliberate campaign of demographic displacement. We graduate young adults who cannot balance a checkbook, change a tire, or form a coherent argument, but they can recite ideological slogans with perfect obedience. The trades, once the foundation of the American middle class, are treated as relics. Critical thinking has been sacrificed for conformity. Rote testing replaces reasoning. Political orthodoxy replaces curiosity. This is not a system in decline by accident. It's decline by design. A legacy of bureaucratic rot and political cowardice. One side pushes for absolute federal control. The other counters with weak half measures, terrified of backlash but unwilling to lead. The truth is simple. This system is not broken. It was built to fail you. And what has been engineered for collapse cannot be reformed. It must be dismantled, rebuilt from the ground up, and returned to serve the citizens it was meant to empower. America is not simply divided. It is paralyzed by a deeper, more insidious fracture. This is not a battle of policies, but a collision of incompatible worldviews. One side has been conditioned to see the state not as a safeguard, but as a surrogate, provider, protector, and moral authority. Their allegiance is secured through entitlements and bureaucratic promises, utopia offered in exchange for obedience. On the other side are those who feel the ground shifting beneath them. They aren't fighting for dominance. They're struggling to preserve the last threads of autonomy, faith, and self-reliance in a system that punishes all three. They sense the unraveling, but have no institutional power to stop it. Both sides are trapped, shouting across a chasm while the structure beneath them collapses. The bricks they throw aren't arguments. They're cries of despair. No one is building. No one is laying the foundation for a future. Because this isn't a nation locked in debate. It's a nation torn between 2 irreconcilable visions. One that seeks salvation through control, and one that seeks it through liberty. This is not mere dysfunction. It is civilizational drift. And the fantasy that compromise or centrism can bridge this divide isn't just misguided, it's dangerous. When a country can no longer agree on reality itself, the center doesn't hold, it vanishes. Gridlock isn't the problem, it's the symptom. The disease is the irreparable rupture over what it means to be American. What we call capitalism today is a mirage, debt-fueled arbitrage masquerading as economic growth. The stock market no longer reflects innovation, productivity, or real value. It reflects one thing: monetary manipulation. Its gains are tethered not to corporate performance, but to Federal Reserve policy, government stimulus, and a speculative mania detached from reality. This isn't a market, it's a rigged casino, and the house always wins. But here the house is funded by public debt, hidden behind the illusion of a private sector economy. We're told it's tied to GDP, but in truth it's tethered to liquidity injections and artificial demand, not to the fundamentals of the companies it supposedly represents. Consumer spending, once the engine of genuine growth, is now propped up by maxed-out credit cards, ballooning student debt, and government transfer payments. Over $1.1 trillion in credit card debt, trillions in federal deficits, a generation drowning in obligations they didn't create but will be forced to repay. This is not prosperity, it's a facade sustained by borrowed time. And when the reckoning arrives, and it always does, there will be no bailout big enough to contain the collapse. What we are witnessing is not growth. It is the systematic confiscation of future prosperity to fund a present built on lies. Money once represented value. Today, it represents risk, abstraction, and manipulation. Wall Street doesn't build, it bets, it extracts, it inflates assets and socializes losses. The dollar has been severed from labor, from production, from anything tangible. This detachment has consequences. Wages stagnate, inflation bites, housing becomes unaffordable, and the cost of living rises while quality of life falls. Until money is once again tethered to output, not leverage, we are gambling with the very concept of value. This isn't a downturn, it's a breakdown. What we face is not cyclical, it's systemic. The unraveling may appear slow, but like all collapsing systems, it accelerates without warning. Either we force radical course correction, or the weight of dysfunction will bring the entire system down. Education. Dismantle the regime of bureaucratic credentialism. Empty degrees and ideological indoctrination have replaced real skills and critical thinking. It's time to restore education's true purpose, equipping citizens with logic, financial literacy, and practical trades. Reopen our schools to serve American children first, not the children of illegal immigrants or the ambitions of political operatives. Culture. Stop rewarding identity and start demanding outcomes. We must rebuild common ground around truth, merit, and shared values, not tribal division and victimhood narratives. Debt. Shift the focus from consumption to production. Kill the perverse incentives that reward idleness and punish enterprise. Savings and investment must once again be the foundation of prosperity. Money. End the addiction to speculation. Restore the link between currency and real value. Productivity, not liquidity games, must determine wealth. These are not political preferences. They are non-negotiable conditions for national survival. Either we confront the rot now, or it consumes us later. Now for the political reality. People vote their incentives. When a majority, over 60%, receives more in government benefits than they contribute in taxes, the drive for reform disappears. In its place emerges a new political currency: protest, cloaked in the language of democracy but wielded to preserve dependency, not liberty. Under the Biden administration, millions of illegal immigrants have flooded the border, nearly 70% of whom are net dependents. This is not a policy failure. It is demographic engineering, an intentional strategy to expand a permanent underclass reliant on state handouts and loyal to the political machine that sustains them. The outcome is a self-reinforcing cycle of national decay.
In California, the state legislature advancing a bill to give undocumented migrants who are out of work unemployment checks. School systems also feeling the impact. The New York Post reporting 16,000 migrant children enrolled in New York City public schools since the fall.
Sacramento receiving national attention, a first-in-the-nation effort to allow undocumented immigrants state money for the purchase of a home. The state would pay the 20% down payment for a first-time home buyer, up to $150,000. Assembly Bill 1840 would amend the program so that those in the country in violation of federal law would also be eligible.
This is not speculation, it is observation. And this is how nations die, not in a single act of collapse, but in a slow, grinding spiral of dysfunction. Each turn deeper, each reform attempt weaker until the system cannot be salvaged, only replaced. This isn't fear-mongering, it's math. The moderate path is gone. What remains is collapse by design or renewal by force of will. We either reset the system or we are buried by it. Rebuild the institutions, realign the incentives, restore the meaning of value, work, and responsibility. Because when the collapse comes, and it will, it won't ask who you voted for. It won't distinguish between the complicit and the complacent. It will level everything that rests on illusion. What's required now is clarity, conviction, and the courage to call the lie what it is, and then tear down the nonsense and build something worthy of the name America.